All right, let's begin with eOne office hours. So usually we talk about SmartConnect and Popdock or a combination of the two or one or the other. Today's topic is for SmartConnect mainly, but I think we will touch a little on Popdock and how they can be used for handling your complex multi-company integrations. So we've supported here at eOne with SmartConnect, we've supported multi-company for a long time, but one of the new improvements in the last year is being able to connect to multiple servers and then multiple companies within those. So I'll give you an example with a quick little demo, but we'll be able to connect to multiple ERP systems. So it could be multiple GP, multiple Business Central, and then dig down even deeper into I want to have access to the 5 companies on my US server and then also 3 companies on my EU server. And so you can connect to all of that and use one integration to do that. You could also use multiple integrations to do that. So there's a lot of scenarios where you can handle those multi-company environments. So we have one to many. So you could do one maybe CRM system. So in my example, I'll show you one Salesforce, which is connecting to multiple Business Central companies. It could be the same if we were going to GP. You could have many to many, so you could have complex integration that's involving multiple e-commerce shopping carts going into multiple Business Central companies. That'd be a very real scenario where you might need to handle a lot of entities within your one company and being able to migrate and integrate that data into the correct places as needed. And then we'll also touch on how Popdock can be used for maybe reporting on or creating complex data sources with that data that's coming in from multiple places. So without further ado, let's jump into SmartConnect. So gonna start out here in smartconnect.com. We'll take a look at SmartConnect 21, which also has that multi-server capability, and look at how that would be configured. So the first thing I want to do is look at my connections. So you can add multiple of the same connector. So I currently have 4 connectors set up for Business Central. If we open up one of those, in each one I can have many companies selected. And then when I go into using those within my integration process, so in my example, I'm doing this Salesforce one, which is taking my Salesforce accounts and importing those as Business Central customers. So a common CRM to ERP integration scenario. So I just have the one source. The target, I told it to import into Ethan Sandbox and then which company. If we go in here, I can load in additional companies. So I could say, let's load in some for my QA connector. So it brought in Kronos USA, which is on a completely different server. If I grab trial, I don't know if this actually has anything on it, but I could add in additional ones from other connectors in here. So now I have multiple companies across 2 different connectors. If I went into custom, I can actually use some source data. So in this place, I'm going to say this company C field, based on what value it returns, I'll direct it to different places. So on the Salesforce side, let me open up one of my accounts. So I created this custom field called company. And with the company, I can select which account I want it to go to. So I'm saying that this particular customer belongs to this company within my ERP system. And so I name them exactly how they are on my system, but they could be anything. It could be this is US, this is UK, this is AU, or however you want to do it. So I'm going to define that if it says Kronos, send it to Ethan Sandbox Kronos, otherwise send it to Ethan Sandbox, my company. So because I'm doing that, I'm going to tell it not to use any of these checkboxes. And I will save it. So now let's say I want to import this one to Kronos. So I'm going to save it. And then let's send one to my company as well. So I'm going to grab, so we're going to grab this one, and we're going to tell it to details. So this one, we're going to say company-wise, my company, save it. So now if we went back into SmartConnect, we should see that my real-time trigger has fired once, hopefully twice. So rather than going into two ERP companies to check this out, we're just going to run a quick Popdock query against both of those companies. So if I refresh this, you can see that I just inserted the Bowman one and the Allison have now both been imported, but they've been imported into two different companies. Okay, so let's try a new scenario. Let's say I wanted it to import this into all of my companies. So maybe that'd be a good use case for like having an items flow down from one company to all of the children company, or if you just do business across multiple companies, there might be a scenario where you're not always sending everything into one place. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to tell this to return blank because I don't want it to actually do this anymore. Instead, I'm going to say import it into both of these. So now if I go back in here, let's grab a different account. Say all accounts. And we're going to grab this cook one here. So I'm going to edit cook. I'm not going to tell them what company to use because we're not using that field anymore. So I'm just going to click edit and we'll just edit the name slightly. Save it. Oh, it doesn't have an account number. Save it. All right. So now we should see cook come into the other side. So you can see it put it in, well, it's now in here 4 times. First time I didn't supply an account number, so it automatically created one. The second time I supplied an account number, and so it used cook 17. But the important thing is that it's imported into both companies at the same time. So now I have that one-to-many relationship where it's actually doing one-to-many instead of one-to-one with a custom defined script. So this list here now that I'm running, that's pulling data out of both my or out of both of my companies in Business Central. I could use this as my data source in SmartConnect. You can use Popdock lists as your data source. So that would give you that multi data source functionality. So not only could I be pulling in Business Central data, but I could be pulling in some data from another place like CRM, from my ERP, from my shopping cart, from my support system, all of that data to get what I need and import it. If we jump into SmartConnect on-premise, specifically SmartConnect 21, the most recent release, we can see I have the ability to add multiple of one connection. So if I were to sort on type, we have a customer engagement for one here. We have another customer engagement. We have 2 Business Central ones. So if I select either of those as a map, so if I go to integrations, Looks like my server's going to sleep while I'm not looking. All right, so this one's taking GP customers to BC. So this would be for if you wanted to migrate your out of one ERP system into another, or from a flat file into a Business Central thing. You may have a scenario where you need to manage complex data. So if I preview here, we can see that there's a company column as well on this data source. So if I go down to the destination, so we're just looking at the Business Central data. If I go to companies, this is the same window that we saw on the online version of SmartConnect, where I can either check a box and say always send the data to this one company, or I could select multiple boxes, or I could use a custom script to do it. So right now it's set to send everything into my company. But if I went into the define, so the only difference between this and smartconnect.com is that the scripting language here is going to be vb.net. Otherwise, it would be on JavaScript when you were in the cloud. So again, I can look at my source columns and say, based on my company field, directed to this particular company. But I can add other connections if I wanted to. Apparently that one's no longer connected, but I could load in other ones the same way we did with the online version. So you have a lot of capability. So even if all of your companies aren't on one physical location, they're on multiple Business Central servers or multiple GP servers, you have access to do that. A really nice thing about this is that you can build environments where one SmartConnect tenant can be connected to all of the things that you need. So in here, I can connect to CRM production and CRM test, Business Central production, Business Central test, and then only need to have one SmartConnect database that manages all of my production and test data so that I can then just swap those maps over when I'm ready to move on and do things a little bit differently. So on the data source side, you have a couple of options. So I mentioned that Popdock is a strong option because you can easily say, I want to grab from multiple companies, save this as a favorite, and then use it as a data source. Another option is to create a multi-data source. So if I were to go in here and say, create one, because I'm on connections, that's why. Okay, so create a data source, and we'll say I want to do a bulk multi-data source. And then you can add in multiple. So I could say, I want my migration customers, but I also want my GP all customers. So I'm going to say this one is Excel and this one is GP. So then if I go into modify, I can now do whatever I want with those two data sets. So I could join them together. I could create a union, which would probably be what you most likely would want to do in this sort of situation. So you could just merge all of that data together into one view directly in your SmartConnect query. And so now every time that it requests data, it's going to call my two data sources that I've configured. So this is one of those places where it can become very important for you to understand your data, know where it's coming from, but then SmartConnect gives you the flexibility to work with those multi-company integration scenarios. Are there any questions? Okay, so there is one question. This does work with other connectors, so I specifically was focused on GP, Business Central, and working with multiple companies of that. But our other connectors can do it as well. So if you were to connect to CRM and you had multiple CRM organizations, which is common to have like a production and a test and so on, if you have that, then you can connect once to your CRM Azure instance, and then it will automatically discover all of your company's organizations, and you can use those as well. So you're not limited to just ERP focus. This would also work if you were connected to something like a shopping cart. So if you were connected to Shopify and you had 3 Shopify stores and you wanted to import all those into GP, SmartConnect has that ability to allow you to import all of them, keep the data separate if you want to, use maybe custom posting groups to differentiate between the 2 or 3 stores. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of options when it comes to working with those scenarios where it's not always one-to-one, because in the real world, those are not that common. So 2021 training, just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we have training available right now. Schedule is not in my slide deck yet, but you can find it on the eOne website on the calendar. So we're doing a lot of online boot camps throughout the year. So we have things like learning how to integrate with Business Central, CRM, REST connectors, GP, on-premise. We also have online training for like smartconnect.com. So we can do whatever it is that you're looking to learn about. If you have any topic suggestions for us to cover in a future month, let us know at officehours@eonesolutions.com. And in between these sessions, you can always check out our eOne Support Center on our website. We have a great forum, help articles. You can submit a ticket and work with our support team directly, or reach out to our professional services team so that you can get your projects off the ground. As always, feel free to reach out to us here at eOne if you need any assistance with anything. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you guys again next month.